Okay, let's do this show, everybody. Let's do a show about video games and not about dog.
If we must.
Dogs are pretty good, though.
Dogs are pretty good. Hail, Alien Duelist! This is episode 311 of Insert Credit, a podcast where we time the answers to a series of topics posed to a panel of video game experts with a horrible buzzer. I'm Alex Jaffe, and my favorite bird in a video game is the seagull that appears at the end of Link's Awakening when you finish the game without dying.
Shoot. I'm Tim Rogers, and my favorite bird in the video game, shoot.
It's a tough one.
Yeah, I mean, the good joke is to say those Ninja Gaiden birds who just get you when you're standing on the edge of a platform and you're about to jump, and they just get you. Because
Do you like those birds?
Yeah, because they remind me of high school. Like eating lunch in the cafeteria, getting stuff thrown at me, getting pushed out of my chair.
A fond memory.
When I least remember it. And they teach me that, they make me remember that life is bad. Just generally. Just in general. That's what they make me remember. The Ninja Gaiden birds, everybody.
Okay.
But no, also, you know what? No. I like those big old chubby crows in Bloodborne.
Oh.
Y'all know what I mean? Those big old crows that are just like sluggishly just like flopping around like beached dolphins on the ground. You know those?
When you said chubby crows, I immediately thought of Yoshi's Island.
No, I don't like those ones. I really like those big old nasty flappy weird ravens. Those are hilarious.
That's good.
That's a real answer. I've decided that I'm gonna recalibrate my life instead of thinking most fondly on the really, really bad game design birds that remind me of how I was treated K through 12. I'm gonna start thinking about the birds that remind me of how I've been living my life since about March of 2020. Living in a plague city, wallowing on the floor, making low, long, weird noises, dressed completely in black. Anyway, I'm done. Who cares?
Yeah, Brandon, I've been waiting for you to chime in with your bird for about 3 minutes now.
Ninja Gaiden bird.
Do
it.
I'm Brandon Sheffield, and it's hard to think of specific birds, but one of my favorite birds in video games is, it's not so much the bird as the action surrounding the bird. I like that you can hatch a chicken in Shining Force 3. You get an egg, and then you gotta hatch the chicken, and then the chicken lays another egg, and then you give that egg to somebody, and then you get a secret character. But I was more excited, I think, about hatching the chicken than about getting the character. And then, I wouldn't say it's exactly cheating. It's just rather all-encompassing. I like a bunch of the birds in Tori no Hoshi because there's a bunch of birds in there. You got to photograph them. There's different kinds of birds, and they all look interesting because they're on an alien planet. And they're cool. That whole game's about flying with and photographing birds. So that's might as well throw that in there.
Are there any games about hugging birds?
I wonder.
Would you consider Billy Hatcher from Billy Hatcher and the Giant Egg a bird? Or is he just a boy who wants to be a bird?
That's a chicken costume, yeah. That's not quite.
Yeah, I think it's a costume. I mean, I also like them. I like them chocobos. I like to ride.
Oh, yeah. That's the easy answer.
I like to ride one. I like to call it up and it says quack and whatever.
I most identify with the chocobos that you first see when you smell them, and then you have to use a carrot to reveal them. Those are the chocobos I most associate
That's
with.
pretty cool.
We've got a guest this week.
That's true.
Joining us, filling in for Frank Cifaldi, who is away on assignment, is the library director for the Video Game History Foundation. You may have occasionally heard him before shuffling around over Frank's microphone. Phil Salvador is here.
Hi there. Yes, I'm here actually talking and not just leaving the office occasionally and slamming the door. So, hello. Good to be here. My favorite bird in a video game. I had a good time to think about this. I was a big fan of The Matrix Online for some years. That was the very short-lived MMO about, takes place in the Matrix world.
Oh, yeah.
They had a very detailed city sort of simulation happening with traffic and pedestrians and birds. And I remember one day some server glitch happened where every pigeon in the world was located at the exact same point. So there was just floating in the air, there was this super dense sphere of pigeons, and theoretically, if you touched it, they would all break up and disperse. but there was just no way to reach it, like in this point in the air. So people just gathered around and witnessed the pigeon orb. So I'm going to say my favorite bird in a video game is every pigeon in the Matrix Online.
Yeah, I guess that's a pigeon king, right?
Yeah, that's
like a rat king.
Yeah, like a rat king. Yeah, I guess I've never thought of it in that term, but yes, that's an accurate way to put it. The
God, that
pigeon king
rules.
of the Matrix is my favorite video game bird.
That's
Very good.
terrific.
Did you say whoa when you saw it?
Unfortunately, I was relayed all of this afterwards. I missed the incident. It only lasted for a short period of time, but I
dang.
caught up on the forum thread and the screenshots.
When you saw the screenshot, did you look at it and say whoa like that? That's
I panicked and tried to escape off the ledge of a building, and then got talked down and had a thing inserted. And it was a whole thing. It was a whole situation.
Very good.
Matrix Online was really emotionally intense.
A little pigeon thing that I enjoy is I think it was like Yakuza Kiwami or Kiwami 2. There's a lot of things that can happen with cutscenes in those games where, objects that aren't supposed to be there are there, and the characters still have to bust through them. And I remember a particular sequence where there were a bunch of pigeons, and the characters were moving. They just were shuffling these pigeons around, just like walking, and then the pigeons slide around and into the camera and stuff. Loved it. Love that stuff.
Very good stuff. Also, I just remembered that the Bloodborne crows also remind me of just the omnipresent crows and ravens of Tokyo. When you leave a club or a bar or a karaoke booth after an all-nighter on your way to the first train in a well-populated urban zone of Tokyo, the streets are completely carpeted with crows the size of bald eagles. Just like enormous crows.
I appreciate those.
The lore of the Bloodborne crow is they got so fat because there's so many dead bodies for them to eat, right? Is the whole and they ate so many dead bodies they can't fly anymore. Really interesting character design and also good lore. And that's they remind me of the Tokyo crows, many of whom look like they couldn't fly either, but then they can, which is
it's nice to have an urban animal that reminds you that animals exist, just in general.
Yeah. I mean, it really feels wild to see them. You're like, oh,
yeah,
these wild creatures just seamlessly live in this city. They're just here all the time.
Yeah, they know when trash day is, that's for sure.
And they know where to be to not be in people's way, and they know when to come out and get a whole bunch of free stuff.
Let's do our first question.
Good idea.
Not?
Phil, you're currently writing a book about Maxis, so I thought I'd start with a few Maxis-y questions this week.
Ooh, okay.
Can we finally figure out what's the difference between Maxis and Firaxis? That's a joke.
Phil, what is the difference between Maxis and Firaxis?
I never Google. I'm always mean to Google it.
All their games use the 6-axis.
I'm kidding. I don't care.
I mean, there was one project that had the Sim name on it that was Sid Meier's Sim Golf. My understanding is that was just EA being like, hey, let's put the Sim name on this. And then Will Wright had a meeting with Sid Meier, and that was kind of the extent of it, is my understanding of it.
Yeah.
Which is confusing because Maxis also released their own game called Sim Golf earlier. So there are two separate games called Sim Golf.
That's so
one
wild.
of which everyone loves, and one of which nobody knows about and is not great.
I just want to say that before you answered the question, Brandon mentioned the 6-axis.
I did.
And I did not react because I was thinking, I initially said Maxis and Firaxis, and then were you to answer the question sincerely, I was going to say, okay, well, what's the difference between Firaxis and the 6-axis? But then when Brandon said 6-axis, I just immediately thought, you know what, forget it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do it.
Insert credits greatest running joke.
Stepped right
If
on
somebody else is going to just say 6-axis, and it's like I had a whole thing. I had a whole bunch of dominoes.
I said all their games use the 6-axis. I added a couple more words in there.
It wasn't as funny as saying, well, then what's the difference between Firaxis and the 6-axis?
Humor is very subjective, Tim.
Sometimes comedy's about who gets there first. It's a little bit of a foot race.
No, it's not. You get there good or you just don't go. You go big or stay home is what I say. Go good or stay home.
I want to
Anyway,
ask,
what are we, Max's
I want
questions?
to ask it. I want to ask Sis. Is there an evolving line of game design that you can trace through the Maxis Sim games where development in one title informs the concepts and direction of the next idea? Or was it all just kind of spiraling in a bunch of different directions?
I'll say the through line to most of it is that I think at least the best of the Maxis games were inspired by actual ideas and research. So something like Sim Ant, it wasn't just Maxis saying, let's make an ant game. That's crazy. Like, they researched ants. Will Wright has always been someone very interested in exploring ideas. So he would find the textbook about ants, like a 1,000-page book about ants, and just to read the thing and being like, okay, I'll make a game based on this. So the best of the games are all inspired by things like that. Sim Earth was inspired by this hypothesis about like how the Earth was formed, and how continents form, and how all the systems fit together in the atmosphere. Once you start getting further afield from that, I think that's when you start to see the games spin a little bit out of control, where it's like, hey, let's make another sim game, but about this thing, sure. And there's not as much of like, focus on the actual real world grounding of it. But I think at least for the first couple of years, you see a lot of that, like their projects are inspired by specific things. Even The Sims, the big inspiration for that was that Will Wright's house burned down, and he started thinking a lot about like, it was a whole, like during the Oakland Hills fires in '91, it was like a whole incident. And, but he was inspired about like, okay, how do I reconstruct my life? Like, how do I rebuild this stuff? And that's when he started thinking about building homes and like how things are constructed and like how you place objects intentionally. And he was like, maybe there's a game in here. This is interesting. And like, so all these things come from some idea people were interested in exploring versus I think later on, once you got to the Sim Golfs, that was like, oh shit, let's do a golf game. And that was not nearly as rooted in something like that. So that's the main through line, at least until they start getting into the weirder, further flung sim games.
I was about to say and then name a Firaxis game. Is what I was gonna do.
Like Sim Golf, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And then the first one that came up was Sim Golf, but you said there was another Sim Golf, and then I was like, oh,
like Maxis' Midnight Suns. That one was not based on real world research, unfortunately. But
was Spore based on? Wait, is Spore Maxis?
Spore was also Maxis.
I know. I was asking it as I was pretending to not know that. I'm sorry. I shouldn't do that.
I purposely capped my research at Sims 1 because past that, it just gets into so many other areas. Like I'm not qualified to like talk about like the 100 baby challenge in the Sims community. It's like, this is a whole separate area. I just don't. So
Spore was based on research though.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I remember that. They were talking about that. They invited us over a couple times as Game Developer Magazine to
look how much research we're doing.
Yeah, look at all this.
They show you a bookshelf or whatever. Is that what they did?
That's right.
Oh, these books.
They were talking about evolution and how amoeba spread apart, and that was kind of like sort of some of their inspiration for how the kind of blobby characters blob together and things. I don't know. Yeah. There was some. I don't remember all the details.
If you listen to Will Wright talk, he always has this cadence where he's so excited about the idea that he's always rushing from one point to another. It has this very kind of like fast and halting cadence where he'll say like, the thing about Spore is based on an idea about evolution. And the thing about evolution is, and like that's just the way he talks through it's just hearing him give a talk. It's just like somebody excitedly trying to tell you a story where they have to explain 20 things before they tell you the actual part of the story. And it's very fun to listen to.
You can hear him writing paragraphs in his head. There will be a longer pause between like an idea and then a short pause between sentences where he's rewrite. I mean, I've noticed this after listening to lots of his lectures and whatnot. He'll stop to write a paragraph in his head and then he'll say the first sentence, stop, and then he'll be like, I'm going to reword this next sentence a tiny bit and then say it. It's really interesting to hear him talk that way.
I empathize with someone who thinks faster than they talk and have to keep like pausing and reworking their sentences as they're going. Yeah.
I think people who think faster than they talk stand a better chance of learning how to talk better than people who talk well. And people whose whole thing is they talk well, right? If that makes sense. You then end up learning how to think about talking while you're thinking faster than you're talking. And then you end up constructing whole sentences and paragraphs.
Yeah, you can edit on the fly that way.
You're writing a research paper while you talk. It's fun to listen to.
Mm-hmm.
And then Maxis started publishing some Sims games that weren't developed by them, like Sim Tower and such. That's a whole other thing.
Yeah, they had a lot of weird projects. The one that I'm trying to keep some research close to the chest as I'm writing this thing, but one this is public knowledge that I just think is amazing is they published a fish tank simulator developed by Alexei Pajitnov, which is really weird. Nobody ever talks about L-Fish, which is an abbreviation for electronic fish. But I
should have called it E-Fish.
Right, yeah, it sounds. I think it's meant to be like elfish or like I don't know what the pun. It's confusing. It's a weird name for a game, but
maybe it makes more sense in Russian.
I'm a real big fan of the alternate timeline where we used the word L instead of E, like L male, L bay.
Right.
I think that would have been a cooler
L harmony.
Yeah, it would have been a cool cooler world. I think if we'd have done that.
you can briefly take a journey into that alternate timeline by playing Elfish, which has not been published in about 33 years. So,
Oh, I bet I can get it running.
Yeah, well, all they need to do is slap some Leonard Nimoy narration on there, and they made it work.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
That's time.
Was Spore by Maxis?
that was by 6-axis. They were willing to get that score.
You could play it with the 6-axis.
I want you to imagine it's 2005.
No.
Maxis is still riding high off their success of The Sims 2, and they're looking for new worlds to conquer. Where else could they have gone next?
One thing that always...
Sims 3.
Well,
fair.
yeah, apart from Sim, one thing that always struck me is that Maxis never did, and this is a very broad term, but like an economic simulator. Like, I've always been amazed, like there's...
A tycoon.
Yeah, something like that. Like, all of Maxis's games are always in charge of a very specific, like, and specific can mean anything. Like, you're controlling the Earth, or you're controlling a tower, and it's never... There was a game that was put out, I forget what company did it, called Capitalism, that it's this very nuts and bolts game where it's like the literal implementation of business, where it's like you're in charge of, you own the place that makes products and you set the price point for them and you have to distribute them to retail locations. You like it's incredibly complicated, but something like that in the Maxis style, where they take a complicated idea and boil it down to something that makes sense, that communicates the ideas of it without being extraordinarily complicated. I'm honestly surprised they never did that for like a tycoon game, or I even think about like Diner Dash being on the very far end of that, where it's like managing a restaurant. Like, I'm genuinely surprised Maxis never tried to do something like that.
Well, Will Wright got into crypto, so there's still time for a Sim Ponzi scheme.
He backed out of that. They did officially announce they were removing the crypto aspects from the game they're working on.
Very good.
But I mean, that's a case where also, like, not to get too far from the question, but he is someone who takes a long time to develop games. Like, every good game he's made took like 5 to 10 years to make, because he was just like, pushing the ideas around on his plate with a fork, like trying to make them perfect. And
how long did it take to make Spore?
I mean,
I don't want to
50
make fun of
years.
Spore. I'm sorry.
I mean, The Sims took almost a decade from conception.
That's true.
Like, Will Wright's house burned down in 1991. Like, that took a long time to happen.
The Sims is a beautiful example of a game that we all know this. This is that allegedly and apparently this is true. Like, EA was like, "Oh, we're just going to cancel this" right before it came out. Right? They're like, "Oh, we don't like this. Let's just not release it." And then they just almost didn't release it, right? Like a great example of the people upstairs are nimrods 99% of the time in this world, and to unionize your workplace, etc.
I guess the reason I mentioned it is that thinking about Will Wright's current project, it's like, all right, yeah, a crypto company gave a lot of money to him to go explore this game idea for like 5 years. It's like, okay, that was who was willing to give him money to do his style of game design. So I guess that's where the money came from, that project. But
Yeah, I wouldn't do it.
Also, when a guy gets past a certain age, you can't really you can't really expect him to know every note of internet discourse regarding a topic, right? You can't really expect him to know or be like fully immersed. You can't expect Will Wright to be totally immersed in all the grody-ness of crypto. And you know what? Here's the thing about crypto. People are often asking me what I think about crypto. I'm going to tell you what. Is it possible for a guy like Will Wright to figure out how to make crypto interesting, fun, profound, and world-changing? Sure, possibility definitely exists. It's just crypto is like an apartment building with a rat infestation, and the rats have gotten all the way up to the 9th floor. Any intelligent exterminator will tell you just got to move at that point, right? So that's my opinion about crypto. Thank you.
It's funny and interesting how, like, because I was interested in, like, what is his game? And then I saw that. It was like, oh, geez, here we go. But, like, reading about it was interesting because the way he approached it was, someone who was not immersed in, like, all the discussion that was happening. He saw it and was like, oh, this is a way we can, like, have some, like, decentralized way of documenting things. And his approach was like, in The Sims, I saw people getting into fights over like mod and content ownership. He was like, oh, here's a technology we can use to solve that. But then every interview he did afterwards, he would have to open it by being like, it's not NFTs, there's no cryptocurrency involved, and like apologizing for the design, like the design choice that he made.
It was blockchain stuff, really.
Yeah. So it was like, it's like in another world where like maybe there was a use for this tech. It's like, okay, Will Wright, I can see that. But yeah, he went into the rat building and had to explain that his apartment didn't have rats in it for the longest time.
Yeah, it's like, mine's the one that doesn't have rats. I installed these supersonic wave emitters, and they don't come anywhere near it. It's all the other apartments that have rats.
So the answer to that question, though, is I wanted to see Maxis make their own version of Diner Dash.
Oh,
That's a short version.
Oh, yeah.
Sim Diner.
Sim Diner.
Yeah, Sim Restaurant.
Yeah, thinking about it and thinking on my own fond times playing The Sims, I'm going to go ahead and give you a point for that because I never thought of that, and that would be great.
Yeah,
I think it would just be great to have a Sims-like game, 100% about running a restaurant, and it can be whatever cuisine you want. Critics can come in every once in a while, disguised or whatever. You can have a Yelp mechanic eventually in Sim Diner 4 or whatever when when there's a future installment. People writing reviews on their smartphones at the tables, right? 1 star.
You can choose whether the servers call people hun or shug.
Yeah. Yeah.
Set the tone for it. I was gonna say it's funny because they almost tried this to an extent with the the Sims Online, pluralized Sims. Because they let you run a business and your house, you can have people come in. But it ended up, from my experience playing it, this very weird dystopian world where all anyone built was EXP farms. So you would go to someone's business and it was just a line of bench press machines. It was everyone just comes here and works out constantly so you can get max strength stats, so you can get money. And it was this is a game about the American dream, and you ended up making these weird farm system. It was bleak.
You know what's incredible is that was jarring to look at in a video game when it came out, because you're this game uses elements of verisimilitude to lull me into thinking I'm experiencing something simulacrumulous of the real world. A simulacrulous of the real world. Sim-miraculous of the real world. But this isn't what reality's like at all, right? And then now in the year 2023, it kind of is what reality is like, dude.
Too real. It was too accurate.
It's just a bunch of birds at the same spot.
I don't. Who cares?
Next,
we're all chained to the giant pizza machine of life.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, basically.
Beyond stuff like Angry Eyebrows Kirby that everyone listening to this knows about, what are some of the more interesting, less known regional differences in game release?
There's also Angry Eyebrows Crash, which is the opposite. They added his eyebrows for Japan, and that's always a fun one.
You mean Ratchet?
Oh, I do.
Ratchet from Ratchet and Clank has huge Groucho Marx eyebrows.
Yeah,
in
right.
Japan.
I was thinking of that actually.
I don't know if he still does, but
wasn't cool enough otherwise. Okay, one
big old eyebrows.
I mean, there's so many. It's a lesser known one is that there was a lot of cross removal in the 90s. A lot of removal of crosses. So there's a sequence that kind of doesn't make sense in the Splatterhouse conversion for TurboGrafx, because there he goes into a church and there's a big cross there, but they just removed the cross. And it was a dramatic moment because light shines behind the cross or whatever. But there's just no cross in the American version because they were worried about Christians. And then that also happened in Exile. And they another thing they did in Exile is remove some of the drug references, because it was cocaine and marijuana and things those were the healing items that you would take. So yeah, there's a lot of little bits in there, but I think that some of the lesser known details are probably some of the least interesting. So I don't know how good that is.
One of my favorite, really bizarre, I'm not sure if it's a regional difference as much as a total reworking, but Police Quest 2, when it was released for the PC-98, the Japanese computer system, all the character art was redrawn in anime style. So the characters now have giant purple hair when it was supposed to be this grounded police simulation game.
Oh, that rules.
Yeah, they did that for Might and Magic also. They're just you know what, this doesn't look right.
Well, that's at least that's more that's fantasy. I can kind of get
Sure.
changing the art style for the region, versus this was a game where you have the drudgery of police work, but your character looks like they came out of Dragon Ball. It's incredible. It's a real weird tone clash. I can't think of any other games that ever came out in other countries with the issue.
I had a story to tell about something that was changed in a region of a video game. That was something substantial. That was a pretty big change that a lot of people might not have noticed. And I didn't want to tell about it without telling a personal story involving one of the people who was involved with the decision to make that change. And so I looked the guy up on Twitter to see if he was still around. And just too many people I know still follow this guy on Twitter, so I don't want to tell the story. So
Dang it.
there's my black hole of a story there.
We can
Just
move on if you
a little
like.
a little black hole of a story there. There was a story, but I'm not gonna tell it because it was just something weird happened. Let's not get into it, but that's my just a little intrigue sometimes. That's what people listen to a podcast for, right? They don't necessarily listen to it to get facts and information.
Well,
It's sometimes the little intrigue is all it
My
takes.
advice to our listeners is not to email Tim about this. You're not going to get any more
Oh, I
information.
mean, it's. I was so vague that you wouldn't even know how to start that email, dirtbag.
If we do want another example to end on a less cryptic note, going back to Maxis, actually, they had a separate vision in Japan that was in charge of localization for Japan. And when The Sims came out there, it kept the naming convention of their previous games, and it was released as Sim People, which is kind of fun.
Oh,
That's very good.
that's good.
I think to this day it is still Sim People, which
Sim.
again, there's not another Sim series to compare to now. It's not like it's on the shelf with Sim Park, but it just still carries that name legacy,
I
which is kind
kind
of
of
fun.
like that better than the Sims.
Sim people. That's pretty.
I don't know. I think The Sims is kind of that's a $1 billion franchise name. Where Sim People it sounds cool. It sounds cool, but I would Sim People, Shimu People. It is still called Sim People. Yeah.
That's
It gives
fun.
you a better idea of the like micromanaging hell you're going to put these people through than The Sims does, perhaps.
Yeah.
It's short for simple people.
I can keep going with more regional differences. I just can't guarantee that they're going to be interesting. There's JJ and Jeff, which was based on like two comedians in Japan, two specific guys.
And then in Japan, it was DJ Jazzy Jeff and Jeff, his alter ego, the less jazzy version of himself.
Yeah, just regular Jeff, plain old Jeff.
Jazzy Jeff and Jeff.
Yeah, in Japan it was two specific guys, and then in the US they made it two non-specific guys and took out a lot of the farts.
And if that game had been released 3 or 4 years later, there would have been an internet forum thread in which like 8 guys who were probably really cool agreed with one another as they tried to convince the world at large that you could have just left the guys in there. The humor could have translated.
It is a weird game to come across, period. Like that game
Oh, yeah.
there are other games they could have brought over that would have taken a lot less work, didn't have to remake everything. Hudson's version of Populous, they did a version for PC Engine that has Bomberman in it. That's pretty good.
That's really good.
Bombermopulous.
Just add Bomberman to it.
Yeah, Bombopulous.
Populous. Is that a Peter Molyneux game?
That's a Maxis game.
Peter Molyneux worked for Firaxis, right? That was his.
Sure. I promised some people that we'd talk about Bungie this episode, so
Bungie.
let's talk about mass game company layoffs. How and why do these keep happening?
Because the people upstairs, 99% of the time, are pretty stupid. Is just one thing in mismanagement and whatnot. Corporate greed.
Growth capitalism is fake.
Yeah, capitalism is the short answer.
Give me about $40,000, Jeffy. I'll write you a really good 200-page no jokes. I'll spend a couple months writing a no jokes explanation.
How much for some jokes?
I can do that for free, I guess.
One thing that has happened is for a while, because of the pandemic, there were 0% interest rates on large loans for companies, and these companies would take out big loans.
Wow, Brandon, did you just reveal your implicit bias that corporations are people?
Yeah, I've been driving around with my articles of incorporation in my car seat, waiting for someone to pull me over so I can say, "Oh, I've got another person here with me. I'm in the carpool lane."
Oh, yeah.
But so you could get this free money, and then if you spend that money acquiring another company, you don't have to pay that money back because it's become an expenditure and a sunk cost. So these companies, people, were getting free money and spending it on companies that they didn't necessarily have plans for. And then when something like now happens where the interest rate does exist and they have to start making actual money, then they come up against it and they're like, oh, well, now I have to figure this out. And that results often in layoffs and trimming down. And it's just, so I think that's why we're seeing so much of it right now across the last year, because that's the duration of time. Embracer was a big example of this sort of problem.
They were warning people to brace for failure, I guess.
That's right.
With the name, and then nobody got it.
Yep.
Yeah.
So there's that, and then as part of that, there's one of the worst times for getting funding and for getting investment, because these things go in kind of booms and busts, and we're in a bust time right now where people are worried about their money. Some people are still trying to spend it, but most people are trying to hoard it so that they can weather whatever this storm is going to be, and for how long it is, nobody knows. So there's just all that kind of stuff, and I guess that 2023 has been kind of a record year for video game layoffs from big companies, but it's also a record year for consolidation. So it's no surprise that those two things go together to me.
And it's also, I think, one of the things that's the most stark that makes this seem even wilder is that it's also just been a really good year for like really good video games being released. Which I think has created this insane cognitive dissonance for people seeing all these layoffs. Like, why would Bungie lay a bunch of people off? Zelda Breath of the Wild 2 just came out, and it's great.
Yeah.
There's a Baldur's Gate 3 now. There's a Street Fighter 6. There's a Diablo 4. Why would Bungie lay people off? Right? Like, it's kind of the, being a little jokey about it, but I mean, that is kind of the atmosphere. It's like, man,
I saw someone post that, like, and this is not an equivalency at all.
Sure.
Like, the game industry at large was making this amount of money and laid off this amount of people, and that's like X amount of dollars per person. But the game industry is not one large entity that shares resources. Obviously.
It's not. It's 14 white guys worth a couple $100 million each.
Yeah. There's it's split 14 ways,
and then just a bunch of earthworms all over the floor.
Just a bunch of earthworms like myself, with their bowls uplifted, saying, "Please, sir, can I have some more?"
And just 14 white guys who don't look down, walking around in cowboy boots.
Yeah, well, they exist they're on a different plane of existence. It's like so people talk about the dystopian nature of San Francisco currently, I've decided to stop talking about that to that extent because it's not funny. But these guys are in the top floor of a high rise, and then when they have to come down to the street and see people struggling, they're like, "This city's falling apart." It's kind of like that. So they're most of the time they're up on the top floor, and they don't have to deal with us schlubs. But I just as an aside, for all the people that have read those news stories about San Francisco crumbling and falling apart, and like nobody's there anymore except unhoused folks on the street, simply not true. I mean, I was just there on like a Wednesday evening. There's just people walking around everywhere.
The kinds of people who write stuff online about how a city sucks and is dying or whatever are the sorts of people who don't hang out anywhere.
Yeah, that's right.
Right? So it makes sense. The sorts of people who write editorials, here's why I'm leaving New York City after 25 years in New York City, right? That sort of thing.
It turns out I made no friends during that time and made no effort to do so, and nobody liked me. Yeah. So I'm leaving.
I will say, I don't really have any friends, and I still do all right in New York. I have a pretty good time here. Like, I don't hang out with anybody 99 days out of 100. Yeah. And I wouldn't say this city is dying at all. There were a lot of New York is dying editorials going around during the early pandemic. My Froyo shop closed.
And thank God there were, because that's how I got a great rent rate.
Yeah, that's how you do it. That's how you do it.
Yeah, like over here, people talk about the Westfield Mall closing down. It's like the big...
in downtown?
In downtown San Francisco. It's like a big...
Whoa, really? It closed?
It hasn't yet. It is closing.
It is closing down.
It is closing because it's like going up for sale or whatever. But the thing is, like...
That's not a cool place.
People were saying that it's because nobody's going there and because it's not sustainable or whatever. But if you go to the Westfield Mall, which is still open, it's full of people. It's like you still can't get a seat in the food court because it's full of people, and people are in all the shops. People are just operating like it's not closing because it's still there and people still like it. It's closing because of like rising rates of rent, people want to sell it, etc. But
for a while, that food court was the subject of I think 9 out of 10 Yelp reviews of that mall because of people getting their items stolen phones and wallets and backpacks. Apparently, there was a gang of not shoplifters but pickpockets working that courtyard for a period of years.
Yeah,
I got a backpack stolen there.
I remember.
And apparently, they would happen to just thousands of people, which is really wild to think about.
It's like if you can get a bunch of tourists in one spot.
Yeah, GDC.
That's a good place to steal a bunch of things. Anyway, sorry, we went astray.
We all know the basic gameplay premise here, I think, but without looking up anything more than you already know right this second.
Okay.
What is the Five Nights at Freddy's lore about?
Lore?
Yeah, what's the lore behind those games?
Chuck E. Cheese but spooky, and you're stuck in there. That's it, right?
Chuck E. Cheese, Showbiz Pizza.
Yeah.
Now, people make like 8-hour videos about all the story behind Five Nights
Somebody
at Freddy's.
watched a Rock-afire explosion documentary on YouTube and thought, I can make a horror video game about this. But no, you seem to actually know something. Let's hear it.
It's not that I know something, but I think I have like a weird window into like why people are into this, at least into this lore. One of my favorite things on the internet is a website called USA Store Fanon. It is a fandom.com wiki where people are it may just be like a handful of people are making like hundreds of directories for non-existent malls. And it's like, here's all the stores that were in this place in the 80s. And it's this, I don't know if it's nostalgia or if it's like Gen Z people like trying to relive some sort of like, this is when things were better in the 80s, but it's this fascination with old retail culture. And that, to me, feels like what powers a lot of the Five Nights at Freddy's stuff. Because it is Showbiz Pizza, Rock-afire, etc. But it's this intricate lore of I assume involving the people who made them and the history of this company. I assume is a big part of it, but I almost see those as being parts of the same thing, where it's like just this fascination with like, hey, there used to be a Pizza Hut in this place, and extrapolating that out into, something you can make 8-hour YouTube videos about. Yeah.
So my perspective on this is my little brother has a child who is a big fan of YouTube. All right, you see where this is going, right? His child is now 12 years old. But I recall when I remember when his child was only 7, and 8 and 9 and 10 and 11 and 6 and 5. And this child has just had Five Nights at Freddy's in his head basically his whole life. Okay, and when I go, so I mean, I spend a couple of minutes every day deleting a few hundred YouTube comments. They're always in like the dump truck section of my YouTube channel because, they have a spam folder. I scroll through it, confirm everything is spam, and delete it. It's all people basically yelling at me, just accusing me of doing what my little brother's son does to me, which is walking up to them and speaking for 6 straight hours without giving me the option to walk away, right, or close the tab. So it's this kid, I have gleaned zero. Believe it or not, this is interesting. I know I make 6-hour YouTube videos. I'm actually, how you get to the point of being able to write stuff pretty well? You wouldn't know this from listening to me talk nonstop on podcasts or listening to me talk nonstop on live streams. I pride myself as being a pretty good listener. That's how you end up with stories to tell, Jerry, is by listening to people. There's listening time, which is off camera, and then there's talking time, which is on camera. I pride myself even as a good listener of children, because I think children can every once in a while say something genuinely interesting. It's kind of like fishing. It's boring, but when something exciting happens, it's like, ooh, I'm glad I heard that weird child say that thing to his mom on the train. Because that's interesting.
I can confirm Tim remembers things about me that I've forgotten because I told him once.
Yeah, it's my secret power. Anyway, all this is leading up to I couldn't tell you a god-darn thing about Five Nights at Freddy's, man. He talks constantly about all the characters and all of this stuff. And I'm playing FNAF World now, and FNAF World has this character, and I have this, and my characters are on this level in FNAF World. And
it's all lists, right?
There's a game called FNAF World, which I think is some kind of JRPG.
Yeah, it's the one nobody liked.
Yeah, well, guess what? Somebody liked it.
Someone did.
Or at least, in this day and age, what's really the difference between somebody liked it and I heard a kid talk about it for 2 hours, right? What's actually the difference? We don't know, right? We don't know if there's a difference or if those two things have more differences or similarities. I could not tell you a god darn thing, and I listened to this kid, and I was like, so what's good about Five Nights at Freddy's? I asked him, right? Because there's people walking around out there in the video game industry. There's people out there who are making decisions in the video game industry who could not at gunpoint give you a convincing answer, and they wouldn't even apologize, and they wouldn't even say, I don't know. If you ask them what Roblox was, right? There's still people out there who could not give you a coherent answer to what Roblox is or was. And I think a lot of those people are working top positions at Unity and Unreal. There's my little joke about that. And it's I learned what Roblox was pretty well from my little brother's child, okay? I was able to determine, I have a pretty good grasp of what Roblox is, what goes on there. I've messed around, played some Roblox stuff. I get Roblox. I do not get Five Nights at Freddy's. And that's not because Five Nights at Freddy's is ungettable. I'm pretty sure if I played it, I would get it, right? But it's like there's a certain thing to Five Nights at Freddy's where this one particular child, I admit it's a small sample size, this one particular child is unable to give me anything of substance about the game. And I find that genuinely fascinating. I don't know what kind of compliment that is, but good work, Five Nights at Freddy's guy. I know he's like a Nazi or something. Like, I haven't looked into that either.
Something that made me feel like I might never get it is there's some movies that I watch where, I get a big part of the way through it and it's like, oh, I have to have like a fear of the devil. Like I have to have Christian lore to find this movie scary or intriguing or interesting.
Oh, I mean, yeah.
There's certain movies that are like that, and I got a little vibe. Like I was trying to watch Arachnophobia, and I was like, this movie has nothing if I like spiders. Like it wasn't there for me as a person who is like, spiders are cool.
How about the birds in the film The Birds?
Yeah, I know about birds.
You think you know about birds, Carl.
I think
you don't know about birds.
I've looked in their eyeballs and they creeped me out for a long time. I've only come around to thinking birds are okay recently. But anyway, I get a bit of that with the FNAFness because he came from a very Orthodox Christian kind of a background. And I feel like there's just something in there that isn't going to poke into my brain because I am not going into a church.
So I've heard you mention this religion thing before, Brandon, about how you can't hang with a specific thing because it's too much about there. It assumes familiarity with religion. I grew up Catholic and just hating it and thinking it was. I mean, I don't want to make fun of anybody who's Christian who's listening to this, but I just grew up hating it and thinking this is the stupidest, lamest thing, and all these people are so unconvincing and boring. But I will admit I still chill with some really Catholic stuff. Like Dracula is really Catholic.
Yeah. No, that totally. There's some
right?
obviously
like
several.
Cathcula.
There's a lot of things out there that are.
Brandon, I don't want you to talk over that. Tim, what did you say that should be called?
It should be called Cathcula.
Yeah,
Thank you.
How do you spell that?
Catholicula.
Like I can watch the Golem and I get it and that's all. That's
sure,
all
because
fine.
that's Judaism. That's different.
I think the young Pope transcends Catholicism.
I'm only saying there are some things that require a certain fear that I was not raised with. That's all I mean.
Yeah, sure. Well, like I'm saying, I was raised by Sunday school teachers who, in hindsight, all had something severely wrong with them.
Yeah.
Sunday school teachers trying to scare us about the devil and heck, and just thinking they were clowns. The fears never took on me. So maybe that explains why I have like an extra super shielding against any movie that you're supposed to have a fear of.
Right, but you know what the fears are.
I know what it is, but I'm saying I don't find. Well, okay. The reason I started this discussion was to say you talk about not being interested in particular sorts of stuff that requires stuff like that, and I, a person who was raised with it, I think I have way less interest in it than you.
I lack the knowledge is more the issue than the interest. Like I don't know.
Well, that's what I mean. I mean, I have the knowledge, and it makes me less interested.
Yeah, that makes sense.
We're way over time. It's time for us to go to a break so we can all get a drink and go to the bathroom. We'll be right back after these notes from our interstitial theme. I mean, one might argue that the reason for Five Nights at Freddy's popularity, and I'm saying this because no one else is within earshot right now, is the fact that it has an aesthetic that might trick one into thinking it's appropriate for kids, but isn't. So the whole thing is that kids feel like they're getting away with it. I'm telling that to you. Don't tell anyone. Welcome back to Insert Credit. We're doing Five Nights at Freddy's talk.
No, I just want to finish what I was saying about Five Nights at Freddy's, because during the break I said that me and Brandon were talking about how the story that is prevalent on social media right now is that the Five Nights at Freddy's movie is too scary. People are bringing their 5-year-old children, their 8-year-old children, and having to run screaming from the theater because it's just a horror movie. And I wanted to point out that it took me a couple years to realize in a conversation with my little brother that I was talking to him about his child and Five Nights at Freddy's, and he goes, "Oh, he's never actually played the game." So that's an important thing to know. It's like he's never actually played those games.
They watch MatPat videos and then MatPat cameos in the movie, and yeah, it's the ecosystem of people.
Yeah,
like the comparison I was thinking about as we were talking about this was Undertale, and like great game, love Undertale, but there's this whole second world of like the alluded to lore and stuff, and like to understand any of it you have to like watch a bunch of speculative videos and read like a dozen wiki pages, and FNAF feels like a black hole of that, where it's like that's the content of Five Nights at Freddy's.
Yeah.
Let's go to our dirt bag.
Oh, yeah.
This is the point in the show where we take a question from one of our listeners who have subscribed to our Patreon at patreon.com/insertcredit.
And our listeners love to ask us about FNAF.
They do.
They do.
Right.
We might do an all-listener FNAF episode if we get 10 FNAF questions. I'm making that promise right now.
Don't do
and
it.
I'm making my panelists promise that they will not do any FNAF research before doing the
That
show.
sounds like it would be an excruciating boring
That would
thing
be,
to listen
that would
to.
be awful for everyone.
This is not a good idea. In fact, forget I said it.
If you wanted to listen to a bunch of white guys talk about something they don't know anything about, you would just, I don't know, watch Fox News or something. Fill it in with your own.
You could
kaboom. Fill it in with your own kaboom.
Joe
there.
Rogan experience.
Joe Rogan experience.
Yeah, that's
He
the
did a
one.
great FNAF episode.
Really?
No, I'm just. I don't think so. Is my answer to
Phil,
this.
you talk with such authority that we just assume.
I knew you were
the things
joking, but did
say
you
are
like how
true.
convincing I was when I said, did he? Did he?
Yeah, the silence. It was like, do people actually think this happened? And like, I can't rule it out, but I don't think that was the thing that actually happened.
It sounds like a thing he might do.
He'd be like, yo, FNAF is crazy, yo.
Yeah, anyway, this week's question comes from Isla, who asks, what is a game mechanic or system you really like that is in a game you don't like?
Most of the ones I like, I'd say. Well, just off the top of my head, I'm what is referred to in the foodie community as a super taster as regards video games. I find more things disagreeable than agreeable. Recently, in the last 10 years, I've learned to basically only talk about the stuff that I like. Otherwise, someone is literally going to kill me. And, but usually the systems that I like, there's always, it's the rest of the game is always, once there's something I like a lot, I just kind of dislike everything around it. Does that make sense?
It does. Like you want to extract it and put it in something better.
I think I have a good example here, and it's a very weird deep cut. I've always been into weird old computer CD-ROM games, DOS games, things in that area, and there is a game that I cannot in good conscience recommend called Robot City that has some really interesting ideas. It is an adventure game from the 90s based on Isaac Asimov books, and it's a murder mystery. We're trying to figure out who killed the only other human on this planet, and you're navigating this whole situation. You have a robot buddy who's with you the entire game, who you can talk to at any point as a sounding board for sorting through evidence, where you can talk to him and they'll say, okay, here's the situation. What have you found? Can you make sense of this? And it's like at any point you can just use that to like try to sort through what you've learned so far. Like it's not bound to anything. It's just a mechanic where it's like, instead of just having a menu where you see this piece does this, they'll actually talk you through the conversation. And there's even some cute little moments at one point where if you say like, I know who it was so-and-so, they'll be like, why do you know that? And one of the choices is, I've played this game before. So like, it's a really neat, like little sounding board for getting through evidence. The game itself is a disaster though. It is an adventure game where the world randomly generates it randomly regenerates as you play. So if you're trying to get to a specific location, it will randomly regenerate the world on the fly. So there is no way to get to that point except just walking endlessly for an hour and hopefully not getting killed by something in the process. So a very tough game to recommend, but a really neat mechanic for a detective game of having a Watson with you who can help you parse what you're doing. So I would take that out of Robot City, at least.
This is a difficult question for me because I feel like I'm in kind of the opposite, or perhaps a dual spot with Tim, where
if you like a system in a game, you just kind of like, you don't really think about the other stuff.
Yeah, so like
because I just realized after I said that I'm like that with a lot of games.
Yeah,
there's a lot of games where I don't even notice the flaws because I just like the one thing I like about it.
Once I like one thing about it, I kind of slide it over into the like category in general.
Yeah, but then having a conversation like this will put that like into danger because you're now being asked to be like, you now start thinking of stuff that you like in games, and then you're like, oh, there's a bunch of stuff I didn't like in this game. We could probably sit down and talk about how horrible the Yakuza games are if we ever wanted to, right? Which seems insane. That seems like something only a completely deranged person would do. But it's like we could probably sit down and come up with a list of 100 this is why the Yakuza games are 1-star video games things.
Yeah,
it would be hard and a little bit affected, but I think we could do it.
When I like something, a part of a thing, then it has merit to me, and thus I wouldn't say it was bad. I could say that I wouldn't recommend it to anybody. I could say that it was an acquired taste or whatever, or that I would recommend it only to myself, but I couldn't say that I don't like it, I don't think. So that's where I get into a tough spot with these, because I don't know.
I mean, yeah, I would say, I would go so far as to say that if I can find something to like, that goes back to the super taster thing. I can find something to like in almost any video game. I dare you to show me a video game I can't find something I can convincingly explain in 10,000 words that I like in it. But again, if you frame a question the way this dirtbag question asker framed the question, I realize, I actually don't like most of the stuff in most video games. but I just like I'm a super taster. I like the stuff I like a lot.
Yeah.
And somehow that puts horse blinders on me when I'm playing a game that otherwise has some trash in it. Like, I've been playing a lot of JRPGs lately for, no particular reason. And most of those games are pretty bad. But I was a teenager in the 90s.
Is a big problem.
I was a teenager in the 90s, and they were great, right? So whatever.
Like Project Number 3, Piano 3, for example, that is a game where I don't like the core mechanic, but I like thinking about what if it was a little different. I like thinking about that core mechanic and what if like her movements lined up with the music and all that stuff, and I like how the art looks, and so ultimately I'd probably put that game in the like category, even though I don't like to play it. It's a tough one.
So I think this is one of those questions where the question itself is slightly more interesting than the answer could possibly be. But it's like I'm like dangerously close now to unraveling in my mind the game God Hand.
Oh no!
Which is one of my favorite video games of all time, probably top 10. And just being like, you know what? Outside of the absolutely perfect action design, God Hand doesn't really have. Oh, and the ridiculous slapstick humor and the really the good character designs and whatever. So much of the foundation of God Hand is just absolutely missing. I'm about to get roasted by my own Discord users for saying this out loud, but it's like, man, I guess God Hand's not a good game, but it's one of the best games ever made.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of systemically empty in a lot of ways, but it's also got that sharpness. It's got enough for you to sink your teeth into that it could be your favorite.
It's a rough draft. It's a practical exercise, right? But then isn't that what the best video games are? And what does that say about the video game medium? That the best video games, in my opinion, are rough drafts and practical exercises of themselves that went on to never exist, right? This is it gets a little too deep, too quick.
This reminds me of the meanest video game review I've ever seen. It was I used to be on a Mario fan game forum for a long time. I was an administrator there back in the day in like teenage years, and there was a review someone posted for a Mario fan game that said, I think this game is pretty great as long as they replace the graphics, sound, gameplay, and level design, and just like every single quality of the game. And it was like that's mean. But I think once you atomize the game, like I was struck when you mentioned God Hand. You said, "Oh, apart from the perfect action design, it's terrible." It's like,
yeah, I know.
It's the greatest game of all time, except if you look at the constituent pieces, and then it's an awful. Like I think once you break things down that much, you will find something to hate in anything. If you're like, well, putting aside its good qualities, there's nothing good about this game. It's like, yeah, that's what happens if you.
That's true about anything.
Because if you get down on the canvas and wrestle with God Hand, what do you get? I'm trying to bring Joe Rogan style analogies into here. If you get down on the canvas in the octagon and you really wrestle with God Hand, right? You're like, well, what could we do to make God Hand the best game of all time? And then immediately, your brain throws a frisbee. And 3 seconds later, you're like, oh, you would just make it have like a campaign exactly kind of like God of War 2018 with kind of a story where you have a son. And then you're like, oh, no, I'm just making a really bad modern AAA video game now. And it's like you go from 0 to that. And it's like, what's the stepping stone between the rough draft, God Hand, and where we ended up right now? The Last of Us Part 3, right? What's the stepping stone between God Hand and The Last of Us Part 3?
I guess it's Nier.
Yeah, that's exactly it. That's literally it.
Nier doesn't have perfect action design. The action in God Hand is amazing.
You could call it a stepping stone, though, I think.
Well, sure.
A couple of factors.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, I don't know. A hard question to think about. Good question.
Yep,
All right.
That was fun.
Thank you, Isla. I would like to ask one more question before we go to the lightning round. I've been thinking about how books will frequently have forewords written by someone more famous than the author, addressing either what you're about to read or its subject. And I'm wondering, what would it be like if video games had playable forewords?
God.
Shoot.
I'm really trying not to make a stupid joke, so I'm just not going to...
Before we actually answer the question, I think it's very important to just get out of the way. David Cage. Just say David Cage. Just have to make sure we mention David Cage at some point.
In this episode, in every kind of video games question.
We've mentioned Will Wright, and that's a little too classy.
Yeah.
Somebody's got to sit on the other end of the teeter-totter, and that's David Cage. David Cage, he's sitting there now.
Imagine David Cage doing a forward for a Peter Molyneux game.
Yeah, David Cage is the start for this. Who would write a forward for a David Cage game? Roman Polanski?
Yes, that's right.
Oh Lord!
Oh! I think that was the best joke I've ever had. I didn't think we could get more out of the David Cage. Just the name. I didn't think there was more to get out of there.
We squeezed that.
I can't believe it. That was good.
The serious answer is I would say like Dennis Dyack would do the forward to the David Cage game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like you need to get the goal would be to get Scorsese to do an intro for a video game.
So are we talking like they're just having commentary before it, or is this like a separate 2-minute playable game that starts before you play the game?
That's what I have in mind. Yes.
Okay.
Oh, well,
I think so. I think it could just be some words on the screen. And I mean, I don't think it has to necessarily be playable. I think it could just be words from a person that are like, you are about to play. You know, like when I went to see Killers of the Flower Moon, there was like a 2-minute thing of Martin Scorsese sitting there being like, thank you for coming to see this movie in the theater. And it was him giving a forward to his own movie. And it somehow felt really weirdly like selfless and classy, which was the weirdest. It doesn't make sense that that's even possible.
See you at the movies. That's Tom Cruise.
Well, now that you're mentioning this is tough because I think forwards are like, it's not like you get a novel and there's like another short novel appended to the front by someone else. Like they're inherently kind of non-fictional commentary, and I don't know what.
Yeah, it's just some words.
Yeah, it's like maybe you're playing a game where it's somebody making the game or something like I'm almost picturing like if appending a very small version of like a Project Digital Eclipse would work on. Like you have to like read how the game was made on a timeline and watch an interview before you play it. Like I don't know what a non-fictional preface is.
One of my favorite forewords, one of my favorite literary works of all time is Raymond Chandler's foreword to his own short story collection, Trouble Is My Business. I mean, he just wrote a foreword. He's like, these are a bunch of stories I wrote when I was younger. I don't think they're very good, but here's why I think they were popular. and here's what, and he just kind of talks about it for
That
a
does
couple
sound nice.
pages, and it's a foreword written by the author prefacing his own work.
Yeah, I really liked a foreword that I read at the front of an F. Scott Fitzgerald short story collection of a bunch of things that he wrote,
Mhm.
serials in a newspaper. Who I can't remember the name of it. Where the foreword was basically about the importance of editors and how like this basically put his daughter through college because he couldn't get any other work at that time, and it was very interesting historical context and made me kind of like the stuff a lot more because it was this pulpy stuff that he didn't necessarily love, but he started putting more and more into it, and the editor was pushing back, so it was written by that editor, and it was pretty neat. But anyway, for a real answer, I think that an attract mode is a great place to put something like that. So like you linger on the pause screen, and then Toby Fox has an original composition and some text and maybe a couple little graphics talking about how this game is going to be.
Yeah.
Well, that's good.
That would do it. So Toby Fox, if you want to do that for a Demon School, come on over. Let me know.
I'm picturing the recent. There's the Jammer Lemmy arcade game that recently got dumped, which is it's basically the same game, but it has a very very long attract mode in front of it that has a lot of original like Joe Chin like fake TV commercials talking about products, and I could imagine getting mixed in that like, hi, I'm Martin Scorsese. Let me tell you how important Jammer Lemmy is to my life.
Yeah,
and
it would
my work.
definitely have to be mixed in. Yeah.
Like
for sure.
Guillermo del Toro introducing Death Stranding 2.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and, so if I think about this attract mode idea, quite often if a game commissions like an animated intro or something, or an animated piece that just goes on YouTube that as promo only, then they'll include it in an attract mode location. And if you got that from like some famous animator, then that would kind of count as that as well. I think as a forward in a way, even though it was collaborative, probably created with them. Get like your Peter. Oh, what's his last name? The Aeon Flux guy.
Peter Molyneux.
Rugrats.
Anyway, the Aeon Flux guy, Peter Chung, is it? Anyway, get him to do an intro, and then you'd be like, oh, hey, it's that guy. I know what his art looks like. Then you'd sort of have a forward. I
almost wonder what is that studio that always does the pre-rendered like versions of games for like announced trailers. Like it's one company that does all those things. I wonder like is putting that before the game like a forward for it in a sense, since it bears no actual resemblance to the game. Yeah.
Only if it has like I think it has to have an auteur voice behind it of some sort.
Okay, that's fair. I think that's reasonable for a forward.
All right. It's time for a lightning round. This is one I'm excited about. I hope it goes well. This is something I've never attempted. We're going to do it right now. I am going to give you a quote, and you have to tell me who you think said the quote.
Peter Molyneux.
1 point will be awarded for the correct answer. 2 points will be awarded for the best answer.
I don't want to sound critical already, but in the future, you should consider retooling this segment as a Cage or Molyneux.
Yeah.
we might get some of that. Here's our first quote. I only included things that everybody likes, like violence, flowers, children, women, friendship, and death.
Oh, so this is a video game developer quote.
Is this video games specific?
Yes, these are all people who have developed video games, but that doesn't necessarily have to be your guess.
Women, children, flowers, death?
And friendship.
Friendship? And violence. Friendship, violence, women, children, flowers, death.
Before you mentioned this was a game developer, I immediately thought, like, oh, this is Quentin Tarantino defending an unpopular choice he made in a movie. Like, I only put in things that people like. Like, I can imagine him in that tone delivering that quote.
You know, that's a good answer. I like that.
I was gonna, it does kind of sound like Peter Molyneux actually, but it also kind of sounds like Suda, except he wouldn't actually answer that question.
Yeah, I would say Goichi Suda.
That was Tomonobu Itagaki describing Ninja Gaiden 2.
Yeah.
Guy's wild.
Your next quote is, design is law.
Design is law.
Design is law.
That would be Atsushi Inaba, who made the Phoenix Wright games. I don't know. Design is law? That sounds kind of, that sounds a little...
I was on a message board in the early 2000s where people there were proposing that people should get special privileges based on how good their game design concepts are, so I'm going to say that guy.
I like that answer. It's very good.
Design
Brandon,
is
do you have any last
law.
guesses?
I can't remember his name. I was gonna go for the goddarn Tekken guy.
Close. It's John Romero.
Oh, there we
John
go.
Romero.
Yeah, it was.
No,
it
John
was-
Romero. John Romero's quote is "Symmetry is boring." So if that comes up later, I've pre-answered it.
Also,
So,
I would count Shu Takumi as the Phoenix Wright guy.
Shutakami. Yeah, I'm just listing names. I don't know.
Your next quote. Success comes on God's terms, in his time and in his way. God only allowed me to have success after I'd been broken.
That's the FNAF guy.
That is the FNAF guy.
Yeah,
Scott Coffin.
I knew it. I knew that one.
Scott Coffin. Did he have the coronavirus early? Scott Coffin.
he
is
did.
he?
Nice.
Is he from a graveyard?
Yeah.
Thank you. I've got more jokes.
You can't show the player a really big bomb and not let them blow it up.
Oh, I remember who did
Bomberman
that?
himself said
I was
that.
gonna say Mark Bomberman. That was his quote. Yeah.
Yeah.
2 points to Tim.
God, who? That's could be Cliffy B.
It was Gabe Newell.
Yeah.
Good old
I never think
Gabe.
of him as a game designer.
like I
That
got
just
close.
doesn't even occur to me.
He
wild
used to
because he's a
design a video
billionaire.
game.
Yeah,
How many billionaire game designers are there?
not a lot.
Richard Garriott, or is he just 100 millionaire?
Stealing is okay as long as it's done well.
Okay.
Frank Cifaldi giving advice about video game preservation techniques.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah.
God, stealing is okay as long as. Oh, I can't remember any of the names of these people, but whoever was running PopCap is my answer.
Lamau, dude.
Yeah.
Lamau.
Yeah.
Tim, you have a guess?
Lamau, bro. No, I don't got a guess.
That was Richard Garriott.
RG.
Oh,
Ricky G.
Is that how
Yeah.
he became a billionaire? Was that his technique?
He's not a billionaire,
Oh, okay.
Exactly.
Ricky
He's
G.
a billionaire in my heart.
Can you imagine being named Ricky G?
but he did own a castle at one point.
So much of the intellectualism we've had in video games is actually really pretentious and dumb. I feel like we've seen a lot of people just trying to be the person who says smart things about games instead of doing the work to understand gaming and discover things and then explore what those discoveries entail.
I'm ringing the buzzer here
that
on
John
camera.
Blow?
I'm ringing the buzzer
Yeah.
here on camera because I have the answer. Not Ken Levine. That's the answer to that question. I had to get in a Ken Levine joke.
I was gonna say
'cause I'm
Ian
still-
Bogos, but I back the other answer though.
Not
Brandon, do you have a
Ken
guess?
I said John Blow.
It is John Blow.
Yeah, I
was
knew it was.
That was meant the other answer. Name escaped me. Yes, John Blow.
Yeah, I also debated on whether saying not John Blow, which would have been funnier.
It would
Yeah.
have been.
All right,
So-
next quote. Mansplaining is a sexist term designed to silence men via gender shaming.
Is that John Blow also?
That is not-
I'm sorry. That's something I said on a live stream last week.
I guess Elon Musk is technically a game developer because he worked on some games early. So I'm gonna
He
say
did
Elon
work
Musk.
on some games early on, but
Man,
this isn't
who-
his quote.
Okay, so I'm assuming this is an English-speaking game developer because there's not a single Japanese game developer who's ever heard the word mansplain.
Yeah, they don't know what that is. Over there, it's just called explaining.
But if you bring up a question of a JRPG as a racist term, we know who said that. That was Yoshi P. So we have that one pre-answered already. But mansplaining is a sexist term.
Designed to silence men via gender shaming, yes.
That's so weird.
Could also be Mark Kern.
So it's that this quote is coming from a guy who believes that every time he's ever been annoying,
That it's someone else's fault.
that it was someone else's fault.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm trying to think, what video games? Ken Levine?
Who is the Stardock guy? I feel like we can just things we don't like. We can just kind of dump on that. But I can't remember his name unfortunately.
I
Is
know
it
that-
David? Is it David Jaffe?
This is a quote from Marcus Persson, Notch of Minecraft.
I forgot about
forgot
his
he exists,
existence.
yeah.
His
Yeah.
goddarn face is like literally the photograph in the dictionary definition of mansplain, though,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, we got 3 quotes left.
Oh, okay.
Personally, a world that is happy and bright is something that just doesn't feel realistic to me. It may sound like I have a trauma or something, but I believe that the world is generally a wasteland that is not kind to us. That's just the way I see it.
Is that David Jaffe?
Is that Ken Levine?
No.
Is that Hidetaka Miyazaki?
That is Hidetaka Miyazaki.
Well, he's not a game developer.
No, you're thinking Hayao Miyazaki.
Oh,
the
oops,
other
yeah,
Miyazaki.
Hidetaka
Yeah.
Miyazaki. Yeah, sorry, it's from Soft
Also,
Sky.
what's your opinion? Who do you like more, Brandon? Haruki Murakami or Ryu Murakami? That's
Yeah,
that's a
all
good,
right.
a classic 1990s joke. I'm bringing back the 1990s jokes
Thanks.
today.
Our next quote, I could make Halo. It's not that I couldn't design that game, it's just that I choose not to.
John Blow?
Is that me?
That's not John Blow. Wow, that's great.
Yeah.
I could make Halo.
It's not just saying like I chose not to make Halo. It's I could have made that, but I chose not to. That's
Yeah.
It's not John Carmack, but is it Audrey, the other Doom person,
Tim Sweeney,
who John Romero is constantly correcting? Audrey Sayre, I think.
No, he's always correcting Sandy Peterson on Twitter.
That's right. That's who it is. Sandy Peterson.
I'm gonna give a left field answer and say Christine Love because I want to see what her version of Halo would have been like.
It was actually Shigeru Miyamoto. In a 2007 interview with Jeff Keighley for Entertainment Weekly.
Okay, man. Okay, so
well, he probably could have.
You know what? I'm gonna go out on a limb and say I don't think he could have. I don't think he could have. He never wanted to make a game about having a gun and a vehicle. He never wanted to do that.
It's true.
Right, he chose not to.
He didn't choose not to either. It was off his radar.
Yeah, I think if he chose to, it wouldn't be Halo. It would be a very different thing. I'm recanting my I think he could. Maybe I don't think he could, because the way that he approaches design has a certain smoothness that would change what Halo is, I think.
Yeah. Halo's definitely too messy of a game.
Yeah.
But it's messy in extremely fascinating places.
Yeah.
So it's been a long time on this particular podcast, or even in public in general, that I've talked about playing the guitar. But I feel like this is a justified opportunity. Being in and around bands and playing guitars now for 20-some years, just being a guitar guy in this hidden aspect of my life, one of the things you've encountered the most is guys who hear a song and say, I could have wrote that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Kurt Cobain, Smells Like Teen Spirit. There must have been 10 million dudes in the 90s who were like, I could have wrote that song. That's so easy. And it's like, first of all, number one, for the longest time in my life, my go-to knee-jerk response to I could have written that song was, but you didn't, right? And in the last 3 years, due to some, I've gained new insight. In the last 3 years, I've realized, but you didn't is still a good answer, but the real answer, call this fatalistic if you'd like, the real answer is, no, you couldn't have, which it's not as punchy to say.
No.
Yeah.
It's, no, you couldn't have, is the actual answer. What does that mean? We'll find out some other day.
Are you aware, Tim, of this movie called Yesterday, directed by Danny Boyle of 28 Days Later fame?
28 yesterdays later.
He wakes up in a world where Halo was never made, and he makes Halo.
Yeah, exactly.
And that man's name is Shigeru Miyamoto.
That's right.
I thought the original screenplay for Yesterday was a lot more interesting, where he does rewrite the Beatles catalog, but it just doesn't take off in the same way, and he's kind of an indie art because...
That would make more sense to me.
Yeah, it's just the wrong environment for it.
And then Paul McCartney, who is like homeless and like has like a huge beard and is like covered in garbage, comes up and assassinates him at a concert, and he's like,
yeah,
you've been reading my thoughts. And everyone thinks Paul McCartney's insane, but it was actually true.
Our last quote is, game development is very difficult.
Oh, that was me. No, it wasn't.
That was Brandon.
That wasn't my mom, because she has no idea
Yeah.
what I've ever done in my life. And she would assume it was very easy and I was lazy about it.
That's a quote from like the tethered opposite person of every internet commenter who's like chained in a basement, who like channels all of the opposite of all their thoughts and concentrates them in one person.
That's right. It was Masahiro Sakurai.
Oh, that goddamn guy.
I didn't get to guess. Well,
you did. You said you.
Oh, that was the
That
real guess.
goddamn guy. Sakurai,
And I gave you
man.
2 points for it. But
Oh,
our
thanks.
winner is Phil. Congratulations.
Because I didn't know the actual answers and I just riffed on it. So
Yeah, that's what I try to get these guys to do, but they're too interested in being right.
Hey, I got one right.
You did get one.
I think the not Ken Levine answer was pretty good.
It was pretty good.
the secret of librarianship is you don't actually know a lot of stuff, but you know where to find it. So like immediate reading
Yes.
is not great, but I can like find magazines where a lot of these quotes may have been from or something like that, but I couldn't tell you who they were offhand. So when people ask me for advice, I just make jokes and it's great.
Well, Phil, your reward is that you get to come up with a question that Frank Cifaldi will have to answer the next time he's on the show. So I'll ask you about that off
Not
mic.
just him. The rest of us
Okay.
also.
The rest of you will too, but gear it towards him.
Okay, I can find something that will potentially upset him. I can think about this.
Very good.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. Yes.
Make him do his sound that he makes.
This is the point of the show where if you have anything you'd like to plug or recommend, now is the time to do that. If there's anything you're working on or something you'd like to show off or something that you just think our listeners should pay more attention to or enjoy. Philly, you got anything?
Well, right now I'm kind of just in full Video Game History Foundation mode. So you can always find us at patreon.com/gamehistoryorg, as Frank will be quick to remind you. But we've got some really cool stuff in the pipeline. I know Frank is obviously going out and like building these collections. I've been processing them, so I'm seeing a lot of the cool stuff as it's coming through. The really exciting one I'm working on right now that I hope we can share soon is we have been working with Cyan, the creators of Myst, to digitize their archives of videotapes. And it's like the raw camera footage from Riven. They like filmed 15 hours of like behind the scenes from the making of their games that like nobody's ever seen before. It's really exciting. So hopefully we can share a little bit more about that one as we're getting the last stuff back from our digitization vendor. But I guess I'm not really recommending like a thing you can do right now, but I'm just trying to get people hyped about like what we're going to be doing in the near future.
Nice.
Excellent. Brandon?
Yeah. Tim, you may be aware of this album already. I randomly came across through purchasing an album. There's an artist called Nakamori Akina, who is very, very incredibly famous in Japan. And
she does. Did you know she does private Christmas concerts in her house every year?
No, can I go? Well, I guess she's probably not doing it right now.
Make that a new. I think she probably is. She's probably doing it right now.
She's had some illness, and so she's apparently.
Yeah. Well, maybe she'll be ready in time for Christmas. Who knows?
Yeah, I'll head over there.
It's one of her things that she's known for. It's a coveted thing to be invited to one of those.
She did an album in 1986 called Fushigi, which this is the album that I just discovered through happenstance because I bought it. It was, first of all, very exciting to get this record, and you know, it's just a record, it's black, and then I flipped it over and it was a picture disc with her like veiled gothy face. She just decided to essentially make a kind of post-punk-ish goth album in the middle of her Idol, like at the very peak of her popularity, just make this album that's very like fretless bass, violins, and her vocals are recorded as though they were in a church down the street, and they set up a microphone pointed at it. It's really interesting and weird. Like, her vocals are the hardest thing to hear in the piece, and she is the focus. Like, her name is on it. And that, it's just really neat, and I loved it, and I was very surprised to be listening to it, because I was just expecting an Idol album, because that's kind of what she had going.
I'm impressed you didn't know about this, because there was a couple years back in
this is exactly the thing I should know about.
So this was a couple years back. So first of all, I've enjoyed this record since about 2002.
Sure.
So it's just I know listeners to this show will know that Brandon explores a lot of music and brings stuff up. I do the same thing. I guess I tend not to talk about it as much, and also maybe I explored as much music as Brandon does now at a certain time when Brandon was exploring slightly less than me. And now I explore slightly less than him. But I've been chill with this
and
album.
Our exploration methods are different, I think, is why we find things at different
I used to go to the public library in Japan, or friends. Listen to friends' CDs and records in their houses in Japan using Napster in the 90s. I encountered some Akina Nakamori albums in around 1999 on Napster, and in 2002 I got really into the record Fushigi and listened to it a lot. And then in 2016 there was an AV Club article about the album Fushigi out of nowhere. There was just a really thoughtful, well-written review post about this album that kind of introduced it to a lot of people, and you saw a lot of people talking about it. And around that time is when Maria Takeuchi and Taiko Onuki started just getting
blowing
tens of millions of YouTube algorithm views, and so it's kind of a neat moment. So Fushigi is, interestingly, it's fun that you bring this up, because it is the album I get asked about the most in a "have you ever heard this album?" capacity.
Makes sense.
By people on the internet. They're always like, have you heard this album? I know you said you're a fan of this record, but have you heard this?
Yeah, because it sort of comes out of left field, even though it's also from an incredibly famous author. So it's like if Taylor Swift did like a weird album where her vocals were obscured, and then 20 years later, people would be like, "Oh, did you hear this Taylor Swift album?" So it's kind of like that.
Yeah.
But it's really neat. And also the next album of hers called Crimson. She for the first time in Idoldom, basically, she used an exclusively female writing team for all the songs, which was cool. So I recommend both of those albums.
There's cool stuff like that here and there scattered throughout that particular little era. Akina Nakamori in general is if you get all her stuff, if you're on a good torrent tracker or whatever, you can get all of her stuff. I've got a full set of Flax over here on my NAS. It's good records to put on.
Yeah.
And also that record Fushigi, for all of its being discussed as a thing that some weirdos on the internet got really passionate about at one point, almost a decade. 2016 was basically a decade ago. If you get to be in your mid 40s,
people were so mad about that record at the time, though. Like they're like, what? They thought it was a mistake. Yeah. Why did she do this?
It's incredible. But no, I mean, so it's like for all of the ballyhooing of the recent discoverers of the record, it is in fact it's more than just here's a different one or here's a weird one from a more conventional artist. It is an incredibly realized piece of work.
It's really it's not just someone had an idea. It's someone had an idea and then they did it all the way.
It is one of the masterpieces of Japanese music. If you were charting the top, we're not going to give a number. The top, the number sign to be filled in later, to be determined later. If you're chopping the top records of Japanese 80s, it would be in there. It would be in there for sure. What would be at the top? I don't know. Or do I? I probably do. But I'm not going to give people too much homework here. But there's it is a real good one.
Yeah. So yeah, if you haven't listened to it, go listen to it. And it was I love when you can have the experience of finding out about this stuff not through the internet or through recommendations. Sorry to everyone because I'm recommending it to you, but through natural, organic. I bought this because it was 500 yen, and now I listened to it 2 years after I bought it, and I'm like, whoa, this is great. It's one of the best things that I've purchased. So, that's
listen to this one right here. Do you have
this
there
one?
You go. Do you have this record? I'm holding a record up in front of the camera. Do you have this one, Brandon?
I don't have it.
All right. I'm going to count that as both your recommendations this week. I've got some recommendations on my end. Would you like to hear them?
Certainly.
Too bad. You're going to hear them anyway. If you enjoyed this or any episode of Insert Credit, I would recommend that you rate and review our show wherever and however you can. I do read every review, so if you would like to make my day better, go ahead and do that. You could also support us on patreon.com/insertcredit, where you could become a patron to submit your own questions, listen to monthly bonus episodes, and more. If you'd like to sponsor our show with an advertisement or a personal message, just contact us at show@insertcredit.com and we'll work something out. You could also join our community at forums.insertcredit.com or find videos of these episodes on youtube.com/insertcreditshow. Go ahead and wishlist Demon School on Steam.
Yeah.
Visit the Video Game History Foundation at gamehistory.org.
Yeah.
This episode is edited by Esper Quinn with original music by Kurt Feld. I'm Alex Jaffe.
I'm Tim Rogers.
I'm Brandon Sheffield.
And I'm Phil Salvador.
And you've now accessed the Maxis v Firaxis Praxis.
Nice.
Available for 6-axis. I've got to go to the bathroom. I stood up, and then it was difficult to sit back down because I have to go to the bathroom, and that's why I'm still standing.